Hi, welcome to BCA Center. I'm Heather Farrell. I'm the curator and director of exhibitions, and we are delighted to have you here for our exhibition, Essential Figure. What can I tell you more about the show today? So, Essential Figure is a show conceived based off the idea that the figurative tradition has been around for centuries, if not more than 1,000 or 2,000 years. And especially over the last 100 years, we've moved away from it in contemporary art and find that we're now returning to the figure in the form as it grows in popularity. And so for myself as a curator, I was really interested in how today's contemporary artists here in Vermont, regionally, and nationally are using the figure not only to depict the human body, but to talk about larger ideas. And I speak about this in the text, and that's the idea of diverse identities and narratives of people. And you can talk about themes of race, class, and gender, as well as personal experience. And so we have some amazing artists in the show, and hopefully I get a chance to introduce at least a few of them, including Sophie Cangelosi from Maine, Jennifer McCandless from Vermont, Hannah Morris from Vermont, Enrico Riley, based in New Hampshire, Suzy Spence, based in Vermont, but formerly in New York, as well as Lorenzo Triburgo and their partner Sarah Van Dyck, based in New York. Well, the first artist I'd like to talk to you about is Suzy Spence, and her paintings are really phenomenal in terms of their brushwork, their expressive nature, as well as their sense of scale. And I'm standing in front of a work that she did, especially for Burlington City Arts, entitled Dirty Racer. And Dirty Racer is really from a theme of paintings where she looks at women who are horse jockeys, something that doesn't seem as common, yet they're out there in the world, but less about the figure and more about the idea of women who are empowered through sports. That they're out there, they're getting dirty. You can even see in this image, like the lip looks like it's been hit, and the action of the rider. And you get a sense through the drips and the gestures that this figure is in motion. And it's a close-up. Now, if you move from Dirty Racer, and I'm going to take you over here to look at another of her figures, this is George. And George gives you a sense kind of the opposite of the jockey and the really beautiful patterns and the strong colors on the black background. The figure seems much more quiet, but it looks intently at us. We get a sense that this figure is empowered and bold and really is kind of meeting whatever mysterious challenge might be out there. And so here the figure is less about a portrait of a person, because George is a fictional person. It really is something that came to Suzy as she was painting, and more emblematic of the strong woman or the empowered female sports figure. So kind of going on this theme, we have two other smaller jockey paintings, Little Dirty Star on the left and Checkers on the right. And when you look at these two women figures, you see them caught in these action poses. You can see hints of the horse through their mane. You see them maybe looking over their shoulder as they're racing. But this painting is also about this idea of pattern. And you see the really strong pattern of the jockey's silks, or the strong stripes, or the star on the helmet. All of these are really coming together to form something that is as much about painting as it is about the figure in motion. Now we have another artist from Vermont, Jennifer McCandless, that I'd love to take you over and share a bit about their work. We'll come right over here, and you'll see a series of sculptures. And if you take a close look, these figures have a lot of humor embodied in the figures themselves. And really, Jennifer McCandless is a sculptor who works through the media of ceramics, and she's interested in the figure not in an idealized form, but really looking at gender and women and the different roles women play, whether it's the wife, the mother, the woman who is trying to get into shape or to conform to society's expectations and norms. And so you'll see these figures where it's sort of the Wonder Woman figure and, you know, the male figure on her shoulder kind of leading her on, but she's an image of strength. But she's imperfect, right? And we get a lot of giggles from our younger tours and students who come through because this is our bodies in middle age often. And if you look over here, you see a variety of figures, and they're all in movement, and they're very humorous in terms of trying to, you have the woman who's stretching with her hands upright, and she's saying, hey, guess what? Women have body hair, and we don't always shave it. And sometimes when we run, we're a little awkward. And, oh, wait, here, women, sometimes we feel like we're being erased from society. And so she's literally put an eraser right there, kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference. And I love, this is one of Jennifer's earlier works where she says, well, you know, my shirt is too tight. Again, trying to conform to society's expectations that we should all look like models and wear small clothes, and yet our bodies don't always cooperate with these expectations, and the results can be a bit humorous. Now let's walk across the gallery and look at some of the paintings of Enrico Riley. What I love about this series of paintings, and they are called the, you know, basically his Together series, is they're the figure, but they're in groups. And it's less about any kind of individual or super realistic depiction of the figure, and it's more about the figure in motion. You still get a sense of that idea of gesture. You can almost hear the music. The figures appear to be dancing and swaying, and there's a strong sense of color, and the color is conveying a mood. And so for this particular one, it's together green and dark blue. And if we move over here to the right, one of my favorite paintings is Together Black and Yellow. And you get a sense, again, that these figures might be dancing or in movement. And indeed, Enrico Riley was reflecting back on his youth in the 80s and hip hop culture and people gathering together, and there's a form of celebration. But the figures are also anonymous. This could be anyone gathering in a sense, but what most specifically, it's from, you know, his perspective as an African American, and the idea that this is a culture and a subculture that's very individualistic to his experience and so many other Americans' experiences, and it's very joyful, and it's something that isn't often or should be more represented in contemporary art, and so he's taking that time to reveal it with us. All right, well, here's another artist I'd like to share with everyone, and this is the work of Sophie Cangelosi. She's a Maine artist, and she is really empowered by her environment, specifically the Maine landscape. And so she often depicts the figure immersed in the landscape and doing recreational things. Maybe they're bathing in the river, or they're gathering mushrooms, or they're on a midnight hike, or even bird watching. And what I love about her particular paintings is they have a very graphic, bold style with their coloration. And she considers herself a colorist. Like, the colors, again, are conveying a mood and a feel. And yet they also have an element of whimsy or fantasy. And this image on the right is Whippoorwill Hill. And the whippoorwill is a bird that you often see in the evening in the Maine wilderness. It's part of the New England area, and I like to think that's that bird there in the moonlit sky and the mushrooms on the table, and you get a sense that this figure, almost floating in space, is in another realm, and that realm is really inspired by the landscape and the experience of living in Maine. Now, moving from Sophie's work, I'd love to talk about Hannah Morris's. Hannah Morris has a really interesting and different approach to the figure. You get a better idea that these are figures in different settings. So specifically here, there's a work on the right called The Crossing, and it's a busy urban scene. And so it's less, again, about individual figures, but more about different groups of figures that are interacting together in little vignettes. And what's interesting about Hannah's process is she starts really with collage, and she likes to collage from 1940s and 50s magazines. And from that, she applies them to the surface, and then using gouache and flash paint, she starts painting in scenes. And then they start to take on a life of their own, these different stories. And all of the artists in this exhibition, for the most part, love to create open narratives. And what I mean by that is that they give you a bit of a story, but then they really leave it to you, the viewer, to fill in the rest of it and to kind of create your own story. And that really creates an entry point for the visitor to connect with the painting, or in this case, a mixed media work of collage and painting. All right, so I'm going to bring you to our final artist, which I should say artists. It's a collaboration between Lorenzo Triburgo and Sarah Van Dyck, which is Lorenzo's partner. And they're not only creative partners, but they're partners in real life. And so this is a particular installation, and that means that from a larger group of photographs, this was created specifically for BCA. We have 7 images here, and it's called Shimmer, Shimmer. And I first saw Lorenzo and Sarah's work at UVM art department about a year ago, and had a chance to meet Lorenzo, and was just really inspired by how Lorenzo and Sarah created this series. Specifically, this is about gender and queer identity, but specifically they say gender abolition, saying that, they don't necessarily believe that you could be male or female, but there's an in-between state. And so through an act of performance, Lorenzo stopped taking their hormones, and through the hormone therapy, and kind of in a transitional state, went out to a beach in, I believe it was Queens, New York, and photographed themselves in different poses. And what a lot of you might recognize from a basic art or art history class are these poses. They're very reminiscent of those of Greek and Roman statues or Renaissance icons like Venus in Botticelli's Birth of Venus. And that's very intentional, because Shimmer, Shimmer kind of creates a series of images from Venus to Mars to Jupiter based off astrology, and kind of a whole universe of identity that's maybe outside what we typically expect. And so they're joyful, they're beautiful photographs of the human form, and then interspersed between the photographs are these shimmering lights, these constellations, as Lorenzo and Sarah described them. And the constellations are actually glitter on a black background. And you can also see the element of glitter on the form of Lorenzo in the images here. And I love to end with this one here, Venus, probably one of the strongest works in the show, because there is a power and strength in the form and the figure as an expression of queer identity. And that's very important for Lorenzo and Sarah, because there isn't a lot of representation out there, especially in the art world, where there is so much to be said about the figure and the form that's new and really representative of our world today, versus maybe the ideal figures of 100 or 500 years ago. So we've had a little introduction to all the artists in The Essential Figure, a show I curated here for BCA, and I hope that you'll come and join us if you can before the show ends in mid-September, and help celebrate the beauty and power of the human figure. Come join us soon. Hi, I'm Heather Farrell. I'm the Curator and Director of Exhibitions at Burlington City Arts, and we're pleased to have you here at the BCA Center on Church Street, right downtown Burlington.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I appreciate the silence for a few moments while we have a few remarks, and then you can go back to those incredible conversations that you're having with friends. So, good evening, welcome. I'm Doreen Kraft. I'm the Director of Burlington City Arts, and I am very proud that we are here tonight. We are all here. We are safe. We may be hanging in the balance when so many people are suffering throughout our state, and I think we need to acknowledge that, how lucky we are. 2 years in a row, it doesn't even seem possible, but we are dealing with a reality that's part of our lives and probably part of our lives going forward. So being together is so critical in facing this, and what better way than to be at an art exhibition, reception, and a place that we can really talk to each other about the things that are important and the essential nature of the arts in our lives. Having said that, I want to introduce our curator, Heather Farrell, to welcome our artist tonight.
And thank you all for joining us tonight for our artist reception for our summer exhibitions, Essential Figure and Rachel Rose Lake Valley. And we are really delighted to have so many artists not only in the crowd tonight, but also who are part of our Essential Figure exhibition. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging them. I'm not going to put them on the spot for any talks, but I do encourage you afterward, if you haven't had a chance to meet with them, to speak with them more about their work, because there's so many great ideas and beautiful works here in the show. So please help me welcome tonight Suzy Spence, Suzy, raise your hand, Hannah Morris, McCandless, Lorenzo, Triburgo, and Sarah. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for being part of the show. So, why don't we begin with our first floor exhibition here, Essential Figure. And sometimes people say, so why this show, why the idea? And it's one of those things is, long ago, being an art student, you go to classes and you take that basic life drawing class. How many people have taken that life drawing class? Right? You're like, okay, why am I doing this? What is this about? And, and at the time, and I don't want to date myself too much, but, it was kind of like, it's kind of old-fashioned, to do a little figurative work. I'm like, I like the figure. There's a lot going on here. And so it's always been an interest of mine, and I think an interest to a lot of people. Well, guess what? If you go down to New York right now in the gallery scene, any of these places, they're going to be telling you, this is the new hot thing. And while most of us say, well, it's not new and it's not hot, because we all love the figure, right? And why do we? How do we relate to this particular genre and form? What does it say about our lives? And I think it's more than just a life study, right? And so that was sort of the idea that kind of launched the show, plus the fact that we have so many talented artists here in Vermont, New England, and New York that are working in this particular genre. So across the millennium, different cultures, representations of the human figure really have been an essential aspect of the history of art as well as our lives. And so this figurative tradition has continually evolved, whether it's embodying the spiritual, portraying society's valued leaders at that particular time, or maybe, as we said, just depicting the likeness of the human form. It's always been with us for the history of art. But in the past few decades, the figure has really had this resurgence in popularity. And it's interesting because we're coming out of modern art and abstraction, and yet at the same time, especially starting in the 80s, you see these artists going out and really reinvigorating the tradition. And that hasn't stopped, it's still happening today. And that's what I was interested in capturing and sharing with our audiences here in Burlington. So today's contemporary figurative artists are really enlivening and expanding the genre. And these 7 artists I've included in the show are really reflecting today's shifting cultural and social perspectives. Right? These figures are not just about what we see, they're about identity. They're about diverse identities and diverse narratives and stories of people through the intersections of race, class, and gender.
So I encourage you to delve deeply with that. And then on our second floor is Rachel Rose Lake Valley. And I'm really thrilled to share this with all of you. Rachel Rose is an internationally known artist for her evocative video installations. And Lake Valley actually debuted in 2016 at the Venice Biennale. And Rose was kind of a young and up-and-coming artist, and really based in like research. It's like, you know, I don't want to work in any particular media. I want to learn something, create something, and then go on to the next, depending on what story I want to tell. And so Lake Valley in particular creates these dreamlike narratives that are centered on isolation, imagination, and longing for personal connection. But also the animated video with the sound and then themes from children's literature. I encourage you all to watch it a few times and see what you discover. These themes are really talking about this passage from childhood to adolescence and to adulthood. And Rose was at a pivotal time in her life where she's like, oh, you know, my late 20s, I'm kind of grown up. What does that mean? It's sort of a frightening thing. What should I be doing? What should I discover? And so she captures it so beautifully in the video installation that I like to say is very bespoke to our institution here at BCA working with the studio. So part of BCA's mission is to organize exhibitions, but also to make a connection with our community. And we do that through our exhibition-based learning programs. And I always like to tell people, if you haven't been, or if you want to spread the word, or help us spread the word, for this particular show, we have several programs, including Family Art Saturday on the fourth Saturday of the month, where we really connect to an artist and to their media and to their ideas, and we share it with families. It's intergenerational, and it's a lot of fun on that fourth Saturday of the month. We also have, or in the midst of 2 weeks of adventure camps, where again, students come down, they're in the gallery, they learn about the artist's work, the ideas, and then they make some fantastic creations. So I really encourage you that if you have kids or you want to explore that or explore some of our other amazing programs in the studios, please do so. And finally, we're really excited to share with you that we have French and Spanish translations of the overviews for the exhibitions. That's with Kristen Dykstra, our gallery learning coordinator, and it's part of our, hope that we really want to connect to a wider part of our community, and so it's a first step. But if you're interested, please ask our staff and we can share those with you. So exhibitions such as these would not be possible without all of you, without our community, without our amazing sponsors and donors.
We're honored to have with us tonight Mark Stoller, who is representing the Diane Gabriel family, who has been so proudly affected by the loss of this incredible woman, an artist, and who has created this with his family in her honor. And Mark, we are just damn proud. So BCA is honored to award to a multimedia artist, to Lydia Kern.
I'm really, really grateful to receive this award with you all, and I think that the thing that's most meaningful to me tonight is that looking around here, I see the faces of friends and so many who have deeply been intertwined in my process and my work, and I think about interconnection and connection in my work, and in the physical act of making it, it's just very clear to me that I don't do this alone. And all of my most meaningful experiences in this life have deeply come from art making, and I'm just really honored to receive this award because it'll help me to continue to do that. And I think about art making as a way to transcend the self. Diane is, in her practice, is transcending her individual life. And that's incredible. And I'm just really grateful to receive the ripples of her practice and the lives she touched, and I'm grateful for the web that we're all in together. And yeah, so thank you.